Microsoft has published a report on Xbox numbers, revenue, sales numbers and that kind of stuff, and there's some good and bad news, and I want to talk about both, so let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I would like to talk about that Microsoft report where they talk about Xbox numbers, sales numbers, revenue, growth and all that kind of stuff. And like I said in the intro, there's some good news and there's some bad news. I want to talk about both. Let's start with good news. Obviously, report is all about the Q3. So I think that's January, March of this year, I think. And there's a lot of growth there, mainly due to ABK deals. So obviously all that extra revenue from Call of Duty and other games actually equates to that growth. Now that's good news. And there's growth, there's a lot of money there. Satya Nadella also spoke about how well some of these Xbox games on PlayStation are doing. I mean, he's referring to like Sea of Thieves and Grounded, probably because Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush didn't really do any impressive numbers for sure. So, but at least they are happy with Sea of Thieves and Grounded, I guess. So that's additional growth for sure. So that's good news, right? And also they spoke about the number of active console users, right? So they are growing too, and I think they are growing in both. I'm not quite sure whether they are talking about only Xbox console users or console users overall. But I remember Jez Corden when he was talking about these numbers back in the days. He was talking about they are reporting the Xbox numbers that are growing too. So that all is adding up, right? So looks like people are still playing on the older consoles like Xbox One, Xbox One X, and they are still selling more and more Xbox Series consoles, right? But so that's good news, right? But the bad news is that they are not selling enough, right? They are not actually selling a lot of Xbox consoles, not as many as they would like to sell, that's for sure, and that shows because, well, that report also talks about the fact that year over year, the sales of Xbox consoles actually dropped by 30%. That's a lot, right? And I know that we're talking about like a quiet time, and I don't really know how does it translate to PlayStation sales numbers and Nintendo. I mean, there's no doubt that they are selling more consoles, and I know that some people will say, well, PlayStation didn't really hit their targets either, right? So okay, that's fine, but still, Xbox should be selling more consoles, right? And I understand that console market may not be the biggest of the priorities for Xbox and Microsoft right now. They are actually doing quite well on PC. Now they are selling games to PlayStation, but they still want to keep that hardware, I think, and otherwise they wouldn't be making more consoles in the future, right? So now they sold 30% less consoles in the first 3 months of this year than 3 months of last year. Last year was actually pretty okay for Xbox, I guess, because they had Age of Empires for consoles. They had Minecraft Legends, I think, that was still in, or maybe that was April. Redfall came out later, so I guess it wasn't really too bad. The first 3 months, maybe that's why they were selling consoles. Where in fact this year, first 3 months was like nothing, right? I mean, yeah, there were some games when it comes to third-party publishers and that kind of stuff, but yeah, I mean, let's face it, Xbox really need more first-party games and more games on their platform, really, right? I mean, PlayStation did actually pretty well this year so far. I'm not sure how that's going to look like later on in the year, where Xbox will have a lot of games, but I think these actually add up to that too. I mean, there wasn't any, you know, DLC or anything like that, anything major. I mean, I would imagine if they, for example, like that's why I was hoping that maybe Stalker 2 would release, or maybe they would release, I was hoping for the Starfield DLC to release in first 3 months of this year, but no, nothing like that. So, I mean, I think that's part of the reason too. But obviously, you know, you've got all that drama surrounding Xbox happening literally in the first 3 months of this year. And that goes to show big way that, you know, all that talk about Xbox games coming to PlayStation didn't really help Xbox to sell their consoles. Like 30% drop in console sales, that's a lot. I mean, you know, 5%, okay, I would say, well, it was a quiet time, you know, nothing really to worry about that. But 30%, 1/3, that's a lot. That's really a lot. So that's actually worrying. And now, I don't really know what they have to do to actually fix that, right? And I don't even know if they really want to fix that at this point, because clearly, you know, being more outspoken about the future of Xbox, but like in pretty clear terms, right, would help. So if they said, okay, guys, for example, when it comes to these Xbox games coming to PlayStation, if they said something like, okay, so single player games stay on Xbox, multiplayer games will be on all kinds of platforms, maybe some smaller indie titles here and there, you know, maybe may make its way to other platforms too. I think that would actually at least resolve one issue. The PR side of things. You know, people would know what to expect, right? They would know that the games like Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Call of Duty, any other multiplayer shooter or any other online game from, you know, Xbox, Bethesda, ABK will be available on all platforms. That actually makes a lot of sense. That's why Sea of Thieves actually sees a lot of success on PlayStation. I'm sure it will come out for Nintendo later once they've got a more powerful console too. So there's going to be more success, that's for sure. But well, all I'm trying to say is that like that mixed messaging, you know, that they were having at the very beginning of this year, I mean, obviously clearly didn't help. So I think they really need to figure out how to communicate better, I guess. So I think that's a big part of the problem, right? Another one, like I said, like I mentioned before, you know, lack of games, really. I mean, not literally, right? But I'm talking about like Xbox first-party games, right? So, you know, games that would make Xbox to stand out from the crowd, if you know what I mean, right? Xbox, you know, PlayStation had some games, but I mean, they had Final Fantasy VII, for example, right? Remake, or however it's called now. And they had Rise of the Ronin. I mean, but that's April still, I think, or maybe March. I don't know. Either way, you know what I mean, right? And so, listen, they need to really address these kind of issues better. And I'm very curious how that's going to go, like for the next quarter when Hellblade 2 is going to release. Now the thing is, I don't really think that Hellblade 2 is going to change much, because Hellblade 2 is a very unique game and great looking game and very good game it will be for sure, but it's still a niche title, right? I mean, so I don't know if that's going to actually move the needle when it comes to console sales. But later on this year, if they start releasing all these other games like Stalker 2, than Avowed and Indiana Jones. Like Indiana Jones is going to be the game that a lot of people may actually buy Xbox for. So, you know, I'm very curious about, I'll be very curious to see the numbers after like this year, right? And, you know, hopefully next year they will finally fix that issue with, you know, skipping like first 5-6 months of the year when it comes to games releases, and then releasing all their games within like span of 3-4 months, right? Like September, October, November time, right? And I mean, I think that Call of Duty should actually move a needle a little bit too, because Microsoft and Xbox will finally have the marketing rights for the new Call of Duty game. So that should actually make a difference, in my opinion. You know, it's probably not going to make Xbox a better selling game than better selling console than PlayStation, but it should improve Xbox numbers, that for sure, especially Xbox Series S, I would imagine. But especially if it's going to be in Game Pass, and I think it will be. So I don't know, like the very beginning of this year was very quiet for Xbox. There was hardly any big news. I mean, Diablo actually came out and released in Game Pass, but that was literally the last day of the quarter, so I don't think it actually did anything to help. So, but you know, hopefully once they start releasing more and more in Game Pass, once they start adding these ABK games to Game Pass, Call of Duty especially games to Game Pass, once they start releasing, you know, their new first-party games, you know, hopefully that will change things around a little bit, because, yeah, things are looking spooky right now when it comes to console sales, Xbox console sales, and I understand that that's not their, you know, priority right now, but hey, you know, they still need to sell consoles if they really want to expand the Game Pass and everything, because, you know, cloud didn't really work out, at least not so far. Yeah, sure, you can release all your games on PlayStation, but then you're not in control anymore, and you are dependent on other, you know, console manufacturers and everything, right? So, you know, think about that. So anyway, guys, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about it, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.